Alright guys, I am back with the line focus principle. Here's another concept that I think we're making bigger than it needs to be. So really the line focus principle is a super long name for comparing the size of the actual focal spot to the effective. And it's just the relationship between the two. Your actual focal spot is where those electrons that are coming from your cathode end hit on the anode, or your target. Sometimes it's called target. So where the electrons hit, or the focal track on the target, is where your actual focal spot is. The effective focal spot is what exits out the tube towards the patient. So as the electrons are coming across, where they hit here, this area on the anode is your actual. And then the effective focal spot is what exits out. So some tips that I use is, I go with the letters a lot. So actual is at the anode. Effective exits. The actual focal spot is always larger than the effective. The anode angle can have an effect on where, on the size of your effective focal spot. Okay, so the anode angle as it changes, and if you watch the anode heel effect one, right, it's either a smaller degree of angle or a larger degree of angle. This can change the size of your effective focal spot. So the image on the top here is showing you a larger anode angle with 24 degrees, and the bottom one is smaller with 12 degrees. And just like your anode heel effect concept, the smaller anode angle makes it steeper. The larger anode angle, remember, brings the heel back more, opening up the space. So a smaller anode angle makes it steeper up and down, and it's going to decrease the size of the effective focal spot. So because it's so steep up and down, the size of your effective focal spot, which is exiting out to your patient, is going to be smaller. If you increase anode angle, making the angle degree larger, moving it backwards, it is going to have a larger effective focal spot. Okay, so sort of an opposite concept there. And then just a general term that I've seen come up a few times is this off-focus radiation. Not necessarily that it's related to the line focus principle, but it just sort of felt like I wanted to put it in here. So we know that the actual focal spot is where the electrons hit on the anode itself, that focal track. The off-focus radiation is radiation that's produced from rebounding electrons. It originates outside of the anode focal spot. So these off-focal X-rays are outside the focal spot area. So again, you know, just some terminology that's all relating to sort of this one spot on the anode where those electrons that are coming across hit. Actual focal spot is right here at the anode, or the target, or the tungsten anode. The effective exits. If radiation is produced outside of this focal track, or this actual focal spot, it is the off-focus radiation. Okay, so not a wild concept. Don't make it bigger than it needs to be, and I just hope that was helpful.